Good morning. My name is Thomas Hauser, and I'd like to thank you all for being here today to celebrate what would have been Arthur Curry's 50th birthday. It's our hope that the next hour will give those of us who loved Artie the opportunity to share some memories and also begin the process of infusing his spirit within the St. Francis College community. Too many people go to their grave with their music still inside them. Artie lived the gift of life to the fullest. He made a lot of people happy, and he was very much loved. Today is an important marker on a journey to fulfill a vow we made, that Artie will be remembered and that his good works will continue after his death. Artie never sought the spotlight. He was more comfortable sitting off to the side, observing what was going on. I can imagine him in this room now, surrounded by students, smiling, shaking his head, and saying, "Damn, this is doing my birthday right." And on that note, I'd like to introduce one of Artie's closest friends, who will be our guide through the celebration ahead, the voice of HBO Sports, Jim Lampley.
Thank you, Tom. What a thrill it is for all of us to be here today, at least for all of us who knew Artie and worked with him. I'm working off the cuff here, and I don't know if I have any lines as beautiful as Tom's. Some people leave before the music has been shared, but if you understand what it's like to try to say important and meaningful things about somebody who meant so much to you, that just finding the words is difficult, then you know the position that I'm in today. Look at that smile. If you never met him, look at that smile. And imagine that that smile was the constant, ongoing, unbreakable response to a life which, at least in its first 17 or 18 years, mirrored all of the difficulties, all of the shameful and painful experiences which we know to be the dangerous parts of modern urban life in America. Whatever the worst, scariest, most soul-chilling moments that a child can experience in urban life, that man experienced them. And that smile was his response. That's why we're here today. So as we move along toward hearing kind of the keynote speech from our dear friend Roy Jones, I want to first provide an opportunity to the man who knew Artie in the way that a lot of us who worked with him may not have known him, and that was away from work, his entirely personal life. Artie's best friend for many years is a gentleman whom he called Frisco, and whom we will introduce today as Isaac Daniel. Frisco.
Thanks for coming out. I just want to say I never did this before, so I'm a little nervous, so bear with me. It's going to be real brief. I want to thank Tom Hauser, HBO Sports. I want to thank Roy, everybody for coming out, especially St. Francis. Last year around this time, we was at Sylvia's eating some soul food. And we planned a 50th birthday for me and him because our birthdays are so close together. Well, I'm just happy to say that I'm happy to be here for him. He would have loved the idea. So instead of us partying tonight, I'm gonna dance for him right now. I love you, Artie. Thank you.
Thank you, Frisco. Arthur Curry was first hired by the Time Life organization 30 years ago. And he was noticed there by a man who saw Arthur every day when Arthur was making his rounds from the mailroom, and to the great good fortune of all of us who came to know this unusual human being over the following decades, this particular gentleman took an interest in Arthur and said to the organization at large, you know what, he'll play a bigger role than the mailroom. And he started him on his way. So let's bring up Kurt V. Brance.
So it's good that Jim set the tone. It's okay to get a little choked up, but like everybody here in the room that knew Artie, I can't believe he's gone. But I do, as Jim said, I have a smile when I think about him because he had that smile. And, you know, the sorrow I feel really pales in comparison to the joy I feel from having known him. And it was 30 years ago today, as Jim said, I had just joined HBO myself. Artie was a 20-year-old kid. I was not much older, although I am older. And it was really the glory days of HBO because the average age of the company was 28 years old. The company was on a huge rocket ride, and Artie was the mail guy on the 15th floor in the Time Life building. And as I often say about Artie, he wasn't getting paid according to the volume of mail delivered because he stopped at every doorway. He was talking about the Knicks games, how are things going, and he really became the mayor of the 15th floor. And we were talking about it earlier. He knew everybody. I mean, he knew Dick Monroe, who was the CEO of Time Inc., knew him well, and he's just the guy who ingratiated himself. And my favorite story, which is one I told at the Madison Square Garden, was Artie approached a whole bunch of us, really pretty much everybody in the Time Life building, and announced proudly that he was going to be on The Price is Right. And so we were all pointing towards this day when Artie was going to be on The Price is Right. And I'm certain that work stopped completely in the entire Time Life building as everyone went into the conference rooms and was huddled in front of the televisions watching Artie and The Price is Right. And at 11:30 in the morning on a work day, we're all got the TV on, and you know the Price is Right logo comes across, and there's Bob Barker, and you know they pan in on the crowd, and you can see Artie up in the upper right-hand corner, and Artie is, you know, he's smiling like he smiles, and then all of a sudden, about 2 minutes into the show, they say, Artie Curry, come on down. And so Artie gets up and he comes down like this, and he looks just like a boxer entering the ring, and he's got the big smile on, and he is very excited. He gets up to the podium. He starts talking to Bob Barker. They're going back and forth. Artie's holding his own perfectly with Bob Barker, and all of a sudden, the screen goes dark. And they say, we interrupt this program to take you to the White House. And they had Ronald Reagan talking about Afghanistan for 25 minutes, and we never saw Artie again. So I always used to say to Artie, hey, Artie, you know, he was crestfallen, but I always used to tell Artie, you know, don't worry about it, man, because only Ronald Reagan can get the last word on you. So as Jim was saying, Artie wanted to move up. You could tell he wanted to do that. He got a job after the mailroom in creative services at HBO. Mary Dickey, I don't know if Mary's here, but hired him at HBO. He had a guardian angel because actually, not a lot of people know this, but there was a moment in 1984 when the company was really going through a huge downsizing, and there was a possibility that Artie was going to lose his job. And Michael Fuchs, who at that time was the CEO of HBO, I said, hey, Michael, you know, we can't lose Artie, and Michael agreed. And so Artie stayed with the company, and then Michael and Seth Abraham basically, you know, launched Artie's career at HBO Sports with Lou DiBella and a bunch of people, and the rest is history. So I think it's just an inspiring reason to be here today, to think about the establishment of the scholarship and to think that Artie would know that, you know, this institution, which is of his hood, that, you know, there is going to be money available to people to come and study here and to raise themselves up the same way that Artie did. Artie always had nicknames for people. There was one guy, Steve Rosenberger, worked at HBO, who had his hip replaced at the same time that Bo Jackson from the Chicago White Sox was having problems, and so Artie started calling him Bo, and that name stuck forever. Another friend of ours who was sort of always buff, working out all the time, and Artie used to call him the Man of Steel. But I actually think Artie was the Man of Steel in the sense that he had X-ray vision. He could see right through you to your inner soul. He could spot a fraud a mile away, but he was not a judgmental or a vindictive guy. He was just a really acute observer of the human condition. I think it's a function of Lise and his upbringing and his parents and of sort of what he went through, which was referred to earlier. But, you know, he was not a guy who ever held a grudge. He just kept coming back at you, and invariably he won your heart. And he won a lot of hearts of people here today. And so, you know, I think that's we should just remember that Artie was that guy, and, you know, I'm just very proud to have known him. So thank you very much.
So what did Artie do over those next 30 years at HBO Sports? Well, as his life developed and his role developed, he sort of created with his own personality a position which made him the unofficial liaison from our organization of men in business suits and women in elegant business dresses to the world of fighters who sweat and work hard in gyms to achieve the hardest kind of identity building. Artie was the bridge between our lives and their lives. If you needed a position, I used to tell people he was a producer. He didn't get a producer credit like Tom Odelfelt and John Crystal and Ross Greenberg and Rick Bernstein, the others with whom he worked, but producers are people who do everything they can to see to it that the product makes it to the television screen where the public can see it, and Artie was one of those people. In my mind, he was a producer. All that began, as I remember it, with a story about a pickup basketball game and the rare chance to meet the guy who was actually running the sports division at that time. One of the most powerful and influential figures over the course of the past 30 years in sports television, and as Arthur would tell you if he were here, a really genuinely good man too, Seth Abraham.
Best decision I ever made was hiring Artie. Probably the second best decision I made at HBO was hiring Jim Lampley. My private nickname for Artie was Young Reliable. As Kurt said, Artie loved to bestow nicknames on his friends, people that he worked with. So I used to call him Young Reliable. Artie was just that. He was one of the most reliable people I have ever known, and one could count on Artie in so many ways. He was selfless. No matter what was going on in his life, Artie Curry took great joy in helping others. When I had knee surgery after a basketball injury 13 years ago, Artie was the first person to come visit me. It was not serious surgery. Artie came every day. Every day he brought something else, a basketball, one sneaker, a pair of shoelaces. I said, what are you doing? He says, I want you to know what you have to look forward to after rehab. Artie and I played basketball for 15 years together on Saturday mornings and Monday night. After I returned to play after my knee surgery, he comes over to me, whispers to me, light him up, I won't guard you, I'll only pretend. If you know anything about basketball, that's really selfless, right, Roy? He was reliable to his friends. If you want to know the real Artie Curry, talk to Lisa, talk to his friends who are here this morning. Artie's loyalty also extended to HBO, and many men and women in this room are the beneficiaries of Artie's loyalty to HBO. He was so proud to work there. Every day, it seemed like he wore another piece of HBO clothing, a hat, a t-shirt, a rain jacket, sweatpants, a sweatshirt. Often at Christmas, he'd give me a piece of HBO merchandise. I'd say, Artie, I work here for 24 years. I have all this stuff. He said, yes, but you don't have it from me. What Jim said about Artie, what he did, There was an intangible about Artie Curry. He understood people. He was HBO's goodwill ambassador. He had a very important job, but as Jim said, very hard to define on any kind of job description. But he truly was one of the most important employees at HBO Sports. I think about him often because I play basketball twice a week, and Artie is not there. When I think of him, two things come to my mind. Artie's smile. Like the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland, Artie's smile defined him. Sometimes his smile was Artie Curry. It preceded the rest of him. It left when he left, but there was something about that smile that stayed in the room. Big smile, white teeth. It was like this enamel vapor that just stood there after he physically had left any room. He's gone now, but in my mind, that smile remains permanently. I used to think that maybe Artie's smile meant certain things that he understood about life that the rest of us didn't. I think Kurt mentioned X-ray vision and being able to look into people. I think Artie had that gift. The other recollection, which stays with me, is one of Artie's favorite sayings, keep it real. Artie was always real in his life. As a human being, one of Artie's best boxer friends, Evander Holyfield, should give up his nickname to Artie Curry. Artie Curry was the real deal. He was the real deal as a human being, as a friend, a son, a colleague, a citizen. The real deal, and he still is.
Thank you, Seth. I mentioned producers. They are the commanding field officers of the army of people that it takes to put on a sports telecast. Whenever we began a boxing telecast at HBO, Artie sat in a chair directly behind mine, about 4 or 5 feet away from me. That was a tremendous security blanket for me. I can only imagine what it meant to the producers who had to face the accountability every Monday or Tuesday after our telecasts for every tiny thing that might have gone wrong, how much it meant to them just to know that Artie was in the building and a part of their lives. For more on that, one of our best and most illustrious producers at HBO Sports and a dear friend of Arthur Curry's, John Crystal.
In the summer of 1992, I was a 20-year-old intern at HBO Sports. And the first day I was there, I met a larger-than-life individual named Artie Curry. His charisma and warmth and love of people was obvious the second I met him. What I grew to appreciate was the depth of his character, the strength of his convictions, and his wide-ranging wardrobe that on any given day gave him the chance to outshaft Richard Roundtree. Artie reached out to me that summer, as he's did with so many people over the years, and we developed a friendship that I came to cherish. As a young feature producer, I would often be assigned profile pieces on boxers that we'd be featuring in upcoming telecasts. This entailed spending a couple of days at their camp with them and shooting the background for the story. Whenever possible, Artie would accompany me on those trips. We made a number of trips to Roy's place. It was an amazing thing to see Artie arrive at a boxer's camp. Was there anyone he didn't know? Anyone he wasn't friends with? He was like the mayor of boxing. But he was like the mayor of West 4th Street. He was the mayor of Bryant Park. He was also the mayor of HBO. I learned so much on those trips with him, some about boxing, but more about people. His charm was so infectious. His instincts and timing were uncanny and allowed him to say things to people that other people could never dream of. I remember at the documentary screening for an HBO show, introducing him to my mother. He looked her up and down and he said, "Damn, Mrs. Crystal, for the first time in my life, I'm glad I'm not Ray Charles or Stevie Wonder, because I'm seeing you." She laughed. She blushed. She loved it, and it was so Artie. He had a gift for making people feel good, and he used it. He loved people, and in turn, they loved him back. Everyone wanted to be around him. He was so cool. He was so cool and so gifted at handling people that they created a position for him at HBO Sports to take advantage of these strengths. Artie was tasked with being the liaison from the business suits to the fighters, as Jim described, and it was perfect for him. He loved the fighters, and the fighters loved him back. He saw so much of himself in their struggles. As Artie was a fighter too. He had overcome so much in his life and related so well to these guys. Professionally, they say that everyone's ultimately replaceable, but not Artie. What he brought to our lives will never be replaced, and what he brought to HBO Sports and the larger boxing community will be sorely missed. Losing Artie was hard for me. It affected me as much or more than any death I've ever had to deal with, and it took a while to come to terms with his passing. When it first happened, I was fortified by the conviction that being down or feeling cheated by losing him far too young was no way to honor such an amazing guy. And now, I find comfort in the fact that he remains so vivid in my mind. Too often, time fades our memories, and we can no longer remember the way someone sounded, the way they laughed, the way they walked. No one who knew Artie Curry will ever forget that Barry White baritone, or the way he laughed, or the way he'd come shuffling down the street. I can still see him, hear him, picture him, and I'm thankful for that. There are very few true one-of-a-kinds out there, and when you have one in your life, one of the gifts they leave behind is strong memories. Artie left a legacy of love. He left behind the type of legacy only those who are truly loved and admired can. He was a man who deeply touched those that knew him, and he taught so many so much. For those of us privileged enough to have known him, he will live on in our hearts and minds. And thanks to the establishment of the Arthur Curry Scholarship Fund, he'll continue to touch people's lives for years to come. It's a wonderful way to honor the life of someone who was all about giving back, and I thank everyone who was involved in making it a reality. I've often thought how touched Artie would have been to have seen the outpouring of emotion from what seemed like the entire world when he passed. Well, I hope he's watching over us today as we celebrate his 50th birthday. Happy birthday, my brother.
With all due respect to the saints, I'm an agnostic, and I'm sure Artie knows. I'm sure he's watching. It becomes ever more clear in this complex world, not just in America but elsewhere, but anywhere you look, I think you can see that parenting is at least as much a matter of choice as of blood. Lise Curry, whom I'm thrilled to have met personally for the first time today, is a beautiful woman who chose with all her heart to be the parent to a 17-year-old boy who had largely been forced to parent himself up to that point. Artie was the 17-year-old son who accepted that parenting bond with all his heart. So it's my thrill to introduce Artie's mother, Lise Curry.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. First, I want to thank everyone who spoke so beautifully of Artie and everyone who was instrumental in establishing this scholarship. I'm rather emotional because yesterday would have been 1 year that my daughter passed away. And I could only think that I was so glad she didn't die on Artie's birthday, because he could have never celebrated another birthday again. And he didn't celebrate any birthday again. But how beautiful the thought that this is done on his birthday, putting something positive in the loss of him. I want, the way we first met Artie was through a social worker who introduced my husband and I to him. And he was 17 at the time. And so this man, Mr. Cucciaro, suggested that we go outside, and so it was near Chinatown, so we decided to have lunch in a Chinese restaurant. So we sat and we said to Artie, here's the menu, select whatever you want. No, I'll have whatever you want. And it's only later that I realized that this young man at 17 couldn't read that menu, and that's why he couldn't select for himself. At any rate, my husband and I took him in, and I found out that this young man who had a high school diploma couldn't read and write. So we arranged to have tutors, classes, and I'm only saying this because, recounting this, to tell you that Artie always felt cheated out of an education. The fact that he went through school and learned nothing, yet he had brilliant intelligence because he did learn when he was properly taught. So I can't think of a better way to honor him than to give an opportunity to someone to have a college education, which he didn't get. And you may think that this shows a sense of his self-importance, but actually, he had no big ego. He would say, Ma, if I had had the education, I could be at the top in HBO. Well, maybe not. But the fact that he rose so high was a credit to the fact that he himself pulled himself by his bootstraps and made his way and became so successful with absolutely the help of his mentors, Seth, and everyone. But I can't think of anything more suitable to honor him than this scholarship. So thank you to everyone who helped establish this, who contributed to it, because he's there thinking, this is the way. Thank you very much for your understanding.
When all is said and done today, Lise is going to take me over to Artie's apartment, where I will have the privilege of choosing which of his rhythm and blues and soul music CDs I get to keep for myself. That is a priceless, priceless thrill. It's also a priceless thrill for those of us at HBO Sports who owe our lives and our livelihoods to boxing, to acknowledge some of the people who've shown up to honor Arthur today. I just want to introduce a couple. Right here at the front table of HBO people is a gentleman named Jimmy Glenn. I like to call Jimmy the senior statesman of boxing. Jimmy's been in the sport of boxing for 60 some odd years as a trainer, a chief second, a teacher, administrator of a gym, the owner of the world's best boxing bar, Jimmy Glenn's Corner on 44th Street between 6th and 7th. Might have done a little fighting himself back in the day, I'm not really sure. Jimmy, just stand up and wave and say hello for us, will you? One table over from Jimmy is Brooklyn's own Paulie Malignaggi. Paulie, great to see you here today. I don't know if there are other fighters here. The great boxing writer Georgie Kimball from Boston Globe and Boston Herald is here. The whole boxing world misses Arthur, loves him, thinks of him in many ways as though he's still around. Everybody talks about the nicknames. The nickname that he used for me was Soul, because I was such a great lover of the same kind of music that he loved, so he would call me Soul, I would call him Soul. The highest compliment I think I've ever been paid in my life on a personal level was something that Artie said to me one day when we were talking about our bond, our friendship, and I said, why do you suppose that we have so much in common? And he just looked at me and said, Soul, real knows real. Nobody's ever said anything better than that to me, and nobody will their whole life. But one of the reasons that Artie was so close and such great friends with the man who was, through most of his career, the #1 prize fighter in the world is because real knows real. Ladies and gentlemen, Roy Jones.
Well, first, I'd like to thank God for having us all here today, for allowing us to be here and to share the warm love that he sent through an angel that you only had to know him to understand that he truly was an angel. So I just thank God for giving us the opportunity, and the ones who were able to truly meet Artie. I just want to take this time out again to thank him for bringing all of us together, because everybody that knew Artie pretty much knew one another, because if you wasn't real, he wasn't messing with you. So I just want to thank God for that. It's going to be hard for me to really tell you a whole lot today, but I do want to say that I'm so glad to see that this scholarship fund has been opened up in his behalf, because Artie was a person of true perseverance to me. I mean, he came through a lot of things that most people wouldn't be able to make it through. And he came through it with that smile that Jim was talking about, that same beautiful smile that would just melt your heart even if you had never met him a day in your life. I think that's the one thing that allowed me and him to become so close in our relationship, because I knew what it was to persevere and go through times where you thought you weren't going to make it, times where you thought you'd never see tomorrow, and still get there, and not only get to where you wanted to go, but to supersede your own expectations. And that's what Artie Curry did, because right now we're here because he worked at a huge situation at HBO, and he's one of the most recognizable people by everybody that knew him in that building, and that says a lot. So to me, to see friends like Lou DeBella, Curry Davis, all the people from HBO, when I see y'all, it make me feel like, where's Artie? Because that was just my way of knowing everybody, because Artie brought everybody together. He was one of these kind of people that no matter what was going on, if you had a problem with A had a problem with B, Artie could get in the middle of it and make both of you understand whether you were right or wrong, make both of you love the fact that you got back together, and make both of you love the fact even more that you know Artie. So he was just one of these kind of people that when I see him, I mean, I got a picture of him on my counter in my house, and I know I'm not no gay dude or nothing, but I got a picture of Artie on my counter at home. And this Christmas, I picked my phone almost to try to call Artie, because that's how dear Artie is in my heart. Some of the best times I've ever had in my life was shared with Artie Curry. And yeah, we're 10 years apart, we're 9, but in our hearts, we're almost like twins. And people wondered, why were we so close? Well, we did so many things together, so many things that are alike. I mean, from just how he would get along with a lady he was dealing with. He would call me, and then he would say, where you been all my life? And I would say, where you been all my life? But I mean, it was just truly amazing. He called me, and I don't know how many of you guys are personal friends of his, and if it's some of you guys that are personal friends of his that I haven't talked to on the phone and forgot, I'm sorry, but Artie called me for everybody he knew. If they like Roy Jones, he gonna call me and give me the phone. Understand me? I've talked to so many people that I don't know who the hell they were, where they came from. All right, hold on, Jones, 1 second, and give him the phone. So if you was a friend of his, you had my home phone number, you may as well just call me anytime you got ready, because he was gonna call me. I'm talking about 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 6 o'clock. He didn't care. If you was his friend and you like Jones and you know who Roy Jones and you like to see me and you want to talk to me, just hold on 1 second. He gonna get me on the other end of that phone. And ain't nobody got nothing to say about it. So I'll wake up half the time, yeah, what's up, Artie? Hold on, man, I got these people want to speak to you. They can't wait to see you back on HBO. Give him the phone. So, but he knew too, though, that if he called, I was going to answer the phone. And if he put him on the phone, I'm going to talk to him. And it's nothing going to be said afterwards. I would have never to this day mentioned that to him, because to me, that's part of the brotherly love that we had. I could depend on him in any situation, at any time, for anything. Therefore, it was my way of saying, you know what? Because I can depend on him, he definitely has to be able to depend on me to call me at any time about anything. And when I say any time about anything, he would. I don't care if it's about some new young lady he met, he don't like the way she act, or he don't like the way I don't care what it was. For some reason, he thought I had a way with women. I don't know where he got that from, but. And the worst thing that ever happened is the tricks that I tell him work. Oh gosh, that really ruined it. So I became this counselor, this love counselor some kind of way, that I don't know how I got the job, but I got elected, and I guess my techniques were working, because up until his last days, he still would call me. Like, I mean, it was yesterday, hey Jones, yeah, I know Artie, I know. So it's just like I said, man, a lot of people know where I'm coming from when I speak about Artie, but I have had some of the time. Pam's son, I think, made a great grade on a test one time, I think. Made something like an 85. Artie called me, hey, Pam's son did good on the test. He got an 85. He got an 85? Yeah, he got an 85. The only thing I got 85 on was my last speeding ticket. He like, well, hold on, talk to him, tell him something. So I don't even know what subject he got an 85 in. I don't know when he got the 85, I just know he got 85. So I immediately got to come up with a speech for Pam's son. If I don't, I'm letting Artie down. So now I go to, hey man, congratulations, I'm glad you did so good. I don't know what class he did it in. I still to this day don't know what class he did it in. But that wasn't for me to know. Me telling him good job was going to encourage him to do better. And that's what Artie was about. Helping and making the next person better themselves by any means necessary. If it took him calling me for me to tell you good job to make you do better next time, that's what he was going to do. So nothing that he ever did bothered me. The only thing that bothered me was that I couldn't be standing there right next to him when he left here. Because, I mean, I talked to him the day before, and I think that was one of the only nights that I ever talked to him. I told him that if he needed me, let me know. As bad as I hate coming to the cold weather New York, he know if he need me, let me know, I'll come back up here. And that was our last conversation. So when you talk to people on the phone or wherever you talk to people, that if you love somebody and you talk to them, make sure that conversation is always the one that you want to end a note on, because you never know when that note might end. So when you talk to your loved ones, let them know you love them and how you feel about them, because you never know when could be your last conversation. And I'm so glad that I let him know in our last conversation that if he ever needed me, call on me and I'll be there. Of course, he already knew that. He called me 1,000 times before, but I mean, it was beautiful for me to be able to get that out, because had I not said it, I'd be feeling like he left without getting a message from me. But now I know he got a message from me. And I know that if he go to heaven, and no matter how bad of a person I might be, if he has to ask God to forgive me and let me come to heaven, I'm going to heaven. You understand me? So no matter what, y'all just remember in life, you never know who you're crossing, you never know who you're meeting, you never know when you're meeting the angel that God sent in your life for a particular reason. But God sent this angel to all of our lives for a particular reason, because that smile right there, that smile will stick with you for the rest of your life, especially if you ever met it in person. This smile right here is something that doesn't come about easy. It's a lot of years of suffering behind this smile. But the smile is so big because he overcame all those years of suffering. You understand me? He overcame all those years of suffering. He made a name for himself, and he became somebody bigger than even he knew that he was. My last story, I'll never forget, when we were down in Mexico, and I can tell you now, don't get it wrong. I feel bad because he's gone, and you're only gonna feel like that because you love him and you're used to having your loved ones around. But we have had some of the best times I ever had in my life. Some of the best laughs I ever had in my life was right there working at HBO Commentator and talking to Artie Curry. He'd be sitting right there behind us, waiting on the next joke, and I got to deal with his jokes while I'm commentating on air. Nobody never knew that, but I got to put up with his jokes while I'm talking about what's going on, and it just was the funniest thing ever. But the one I would never forget was we was in Mexico, and I forgot who was fighting. But I don't speak no Spanish, and Artie don't speak no Spanish, but Artie happens to know Julio Cesar Chavez. So people keep coming up to us, trying to sell us things. All types of things are going on. So Arthur always thought that in public, he's my big brother. Now, on the phone, I'm his big brother. But in the public, he's my big brother, so he always got my back. So we walking through Mexico, and it's nothing against nobody. I hope nobody don't take this the wrong way. But because neither one of us spoke Spanish, the only thing we knew the most popular thing we knew was Julio Cesar Chavez. So people would come up and say something to us, we don't understand it, or they look at them, come on, man, Chavez. I'm dying, right? I mean, I am dying. So by the third time this happens, I say, you gotta take me back to the room or I can't take it no more. People come up trying to sell us something, and he look up, come on, man, what? Chavez, what you want us to do? And man, I'm talking about, I don't know how I ever lived to commentate that job, because the whole time I was commentating, I just wanted to say Chavez. I mean, Chavez was the answer to everything. No matter what they asked us, Chavez, that was good enough. And that was the funnest time I've ever had in my life. So I want y'all to understand that this was a beautiful thing, but I was a beautiful person. And there would never be another person in my life from nowhere that would ever touch my life the way that man did. Because having a friend is one thing, but having a true friend that you know can call you at 3 o'clock in the morning, or you can call him at 3 o'clock in the morning. He's gonna be there for you, and therefore you must be there for him. Those are hard to find. But when you find them, hang on to them, and don't be afraid to let them know how you feel about them, because you never know what tomorrow holds, all right? God bless y'all, God keep y'all, and thank y'all for having me.
Just as for his first 17, nearly 18 years, lost in the world of homeless shelters and foster homes and group homes and the system, Arthur was a rough diamond, waiting only to be polished and placed into the right setting. And now the idea is that every year here at St. Francis, with the assistance of this great school and with the love and support of Arthur's friends, we will try to locate, the school will help us try to locate another Arthur Curry, or someone like him every year. So with an eye toward moving forward on that, let's introduce one of our hosts, Brendan J. Dugan, the president of St. Francis College.
Thank you very much, Jim. Well, on behalf of our board, our faculty, and our students, I first and foremost want to welcome you all here today, and thank you very much for being with us. To Artie's friends and family, thank you especially for introducing us to Arthur and sharing his birthday with us and giving us some insights into the legacy that he leaves behind. I want to also offer special thanks to HBO and the employees of HBO and its friends from HBO who helped make all of this possible. All these memories that have been shared this morning have certainly been inspiring to all of us. And now all of our students have the responsibility for carrying forth the spirit of Arthur as members of our St. Francis College family. Thank you for entrusting the college with the task of upholding those precious memories through this Arthur Curry Scholarship, which, as Jim said, will be awarded annually. The person who is most responsible from the college's point of view for making all this happen is our Chancellor, Dr. Frank Maciarola, who's with us here this morning. And I'd like to invite Frank up now to share some thoughts with you. Frank?
Thank you, Brendan. Thank you very much. It's really an honor for me to welcome all of you to St. Francis College, particularly my friends from HBO, who I usually see on Monday, on Friday and Saturday, and now I'm seeing them today. I am a fight fan, I have to tell you. It's because my friend Tom Hauser convinced me that this is something that is absolutely safe and good for people. And since I was Tom's dorm counselor many years ago, I learned I can learn a lot from Tom Hauser. So I pay attention to what Tommy tells me. It's also great for me to see people that, you know, I mean, here's Lou DiBella. I watch him. Everybody's here, Tom, except, what's that big, heavy fellow with the hair that stands up? Everybody's here except him. On a serious note, I want to thank you, Tom. Tom and I go back to when I was his dorm counselor. He was a Columbia College student. I was in the law school. And since that time, both of us have reformed. Neither of us are lawyers anymore in any way, shape, or form, which is, I think, good for the legal profession and good for society as a whole. But in that period of time since then, we've collaborated on a number of projects. We've written some things together. But this is a very important one. It's an important one because the memory of Arthur Curry, the legacy of Arthur Curry, fits with what we are about. We're a Catholic college. It shouldn't come as a surprise, although most people think St. Francis was their saint, but that's good. We'll share. Everybody can have St. Francis. But in the tradition of our faith, this is a season of Lent, a season of repentance, a season that anticipates the coming of Easter, which is the greatest feast in the Catholic Church. Easter is a time of resurrection. And I'd like to think that today's event is entirely appropriate to the meaning of Lent, Lent being a time in this year when we sacrifice, when we do things that we may not want to do, but that we have to do because we feel an obligation, a moral obligation. It's like answering the telephone at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's like extending yourself beyond what anyone else has any reason to expect you will. It's to surprise people with the goodness that you represent so that they are elevated by your presence in their lives. And that's what saints do. There have been some references to saint up here, and they're not idle references. Everyone in this audience is called to sainthood. And when that call comes, you respond to it or ignore it. Some people respond to it in magnificent ways. Arthur Curry was that kind of a person because he did extraordinary things for people. You only have to listen to what people have said. He enhanced their lives. He validated what they were about. He brought dignity to those people in society who are marginalized, and he made them feel important because they are important. That's the key. He wasn't selling a bill of goods. He was selling the reality of everyone he came into contact with. And that's an uncanonized saint. When you go downstairs and look in the lobby, you will see some portraits. Arthur's will be among them. They are the wall, 2 walls in fact, of scholarship honorees. And they include some of the most noble people in our own college's history. Professors, faculty, staff, administrators who gave freely and fully, many of them Franciscan brothers, If you look deeper into that, you'll see parents of our graduates. Our graduates honored their parents by creating scholarships in their honor so that their legacy would be continued, so that people would remember them. There's nothing better than to have a scholarship in your name. I can tell you that. That's the best. They name a building after me. More important is that they're students that carry on understanding what that means. And that's what we have with Arthur Curry's scholarship. He's like others who have done good things in the world and for whom an honor was given. Our student government, many years ago, named an award for John Kennedy. So every so often, because we can't give it every year, there's a John F. Kennedy scholarship that's been given. Hauser has big dreams. Hauser wants a scholarship every year until next year, because next year he wants 2 scholarships. And we'll work on that. We'll work on that because it is important to remember. It is important to give. And every one of you who have helped us has been part of Arthur's legacy. His memory is alive in the people who bear his name, his scholarship. And so today, we celebrate his birthday. We will celebrate a scholarship. Hopefully, we'll even be able to award a scholarship. But I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag. I am going to reintroduce the president of the college and ask Chris Antonino, a member of our soccer team, and Irma Garcia, our athletic director, to come on up, and we're going to make some presentations. So, Brendan, you come up. You're going to make the presentation.
We can help you.
You got your script.
Well, we have a lot of people to thank, and we thank all of you, first of all, for participating in this. But we have some special tokens of our appreciation, which we're going to give out at this point. So we'd like to thank Isaac Daniel, Arthur's best friend. Would you please come forward, Isaac? And also Tom Hauser. Would you also come forward? This is Tom Flood and Dennis McDermott. Okay, let's get a picture. Stay here for 1 second. You want to join?
Frisco here. Is that right?
Yes.
Was Artie's best friend. I done talked to Frisco on the phone so many times and never seen him before. He's another one of these people that get the phone. But if Artie was here, he'd love that we celebrate his birthday like they normally did. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and sing happy birthday to Frisco too. All right? So 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Frisco and Artie. Happy birthday to you. Thank you very much.
That's a treat. Oh, thanks a lot. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to call Arthur's mother, Lise Curry, up, please. And we have Venetia Hoyt and Chris please come forward. Take these, this plaque and these flowers. Chris?
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Don't run away.
No,
Don't run away.
I guess I'm holding this the wrong way.
Thanks, Tim. Please stay here on stage for a second. We have a very special surprise to share with you. Venetia Hoy has been judged to be our first Arthur Curry Scholar based on her academic achievement, her involvement in school activities, her involvement in many community activities, and being a member of our track team. I understand she's quite a sprinter. And her parents are here with us today, too. Sure. Sure. Thank you very much. Well, thank you, and let's hear it. Congratulations. So I'd like now for all of you to just give yourselves a round of applause for making this great day possible. Back to Jim Lampley.
All right. Thank you, President Dugan. Thank you, Chancellor Maciarola. Just before we finish up, I want to acknowledge a couple more boxing people who made it out today. Arthur's beloved colleague from our World Championship boxing telecast, Harold Letterman, the unofficial ringside scorer, is in the house. Somebody already mentioned the very great Lou DiBella, one of the most prominent promoters in the sport, Paulie's promoter, among others. There may be some other boxing leading lights here whom I have failed to identify, and that's my fault, so I apologize to them. But needless to say, the whole boxing world is here in spirit because everybody knew Arthur and loved Arthur. I especially want to thank everybody from, say, the front third of the room back, because here in the front third of the room, we're not speaking Greek when we try to identify how wonderful Arthur was and how much he meant to us. Most of these people here in front know what we mean. The rest of you are all people who probably never met him and came here today without really any graphic understanding of why we're here. And I cannot tell you how much we appreciate that you came, that you were a part of it, that you sat, that you listened to what we had to say. Somewhere Arthur is smiling. Thank you very much.
Jim? For Jim and Roy, we also have a couple of mementos that they can take with them. Please come forward, Irma Garcia.
Love an honorary doctor. Such a great idea.
So, meet so.
Thank you.
Roy?
Roy and I are honorary Terriers. Go Terriers.
Thanks, Roy.
Thank y'all again, and like he said, go Terriers.
Okay, well, thanks everybody. Thanks for being with us. That curtain will magically disappear, and one of our highly valued virtues, being Franciscan, is that we never send people away hungry. So there's something to eat, and please enjoy the rest of Just Stay with us.